Yesterday, I was talking about the two kinds of meditation in our tradition, the Indo-Tibetan tradition. And over lunch, we were having some further discussion about that. So I thought to continue with that topic today and just say a few more things. There's so much to be said about it, but anyway, a little bit more today. So there seems to be a common notion that meditation should always be non-conceptual, thought-free, no thinking, just be in the moment, just be in the now, and don't think about anything. So I think some people have this idea about meditation, and maybe some teachers are teaching that as well. And this isn't a new idea. Because it's said that in the past, during the 8th century in Tibet, there was there's a story. I don't know how true the story is. There's a debate about it, but there's a story that there was a Chinese monk who was teaching that kind of meditation, and it actually became very popular. A lot of people were doing it. He was, saying, just don't think about anything. Any kind of thoughts in your mind are like clouds, and whether it's a white cloud or it's a black cloud, it's obscuring the sky. So get rid of all of the thoughts, even positive thoughts, even virtuous thoughts. They're obscuring your mind. And the story is that the king of Tibet at that time was concerned about this practice and held a debate between this monk and Kamalashila, one of the Indian masters instrumental in the propagation of Buddhism in Tibet. And Kamalashila won the debate, and the Chinese monk was shooed out of Tibet. But it seems that that kind of meditation remained, because I read in one text that Lama Tsongkhapa, that means several centuries later, did that kind of practice. He was actually attracted to it and was practicing it in the early part of his life. And then later, he refuted it. Okay, so there's quite a bit of discussion about that kind of practice versus doing analytical meditation. So one problem that's pointed out is that if we just exclude all thoughts and concepts from our mind when we meditate, then that leaves out the whole method side of the path. You've probably heard the story of the 2 wings of the bird, method and wisdom. We need both of those wings to be able to reach enlightenment. We can't reach enlightenment with only one of those 2 aspects. So the method side of the path includes things like bodhicitta, developing love and compassion and equanimity and so forth. And then the first 5 perfections, perfection of giving, ethics, patience, and so forth. So to be able to do those practices, we need to employ thought, thinking, conceptuality. So if you totally exclude thinking, then you're excluding the method side of the path. And if you exclude that, you won't be able to reach enlightenment. But even for the other side of the path, the wisdom side of the path, you also need thought, thinking, conceptuality, because the wisdom side of the path is mainly about developing a correct understanding of emptiness and having a direct, non-conceptual experience of emptiness, realizing emptiness directly and non-conceptually. But emptiness itself is a subtle object, a hidden object, and you cannot access it immediately with a non-conceptual mind. You have to first understand it conceptually. Okay, so there may be different opinions about that, but this is Lama Tsongkhapa's view, and also the Indian masters. You first have to get a conceptual understanding of emptiness by using thought, reasoning, and so forth. Then once you've got that, you keep meditating on it, and you gradually clear away the meaning generality, what we were talking about last night, this mental image, because when you have a conceptual understanding of emptiness, you're seeing emptiness through the medium of a mental image. You're actually seeing a mental image of emptiness, which looks like emptiness, but it isn't really emptiness. Just like when we have a thought about a table, what appears to our mind is a mental image of a table, but it isn't itself a table. Okay? So it's a good understanding, but it's not perfect. So we want to clear away this meaning generality, this mental image of emptiness, and get to where the mind is able to see emptiness directly, without any medium in the way. Okay, but you first have to go through conceptuality to be able to get to non-conceptuality in terms of emptiness. So for both sides of the path, the method side of the path, the wisdom side of the path, those two wings, it's necessary to use thought, conceptuality. But that doesn't mean just any kind of thought. It doesn't mean just letting your mind go wild all over the place, thinking about anything and everything. So it does require, specific kinds of thinking about specific topics. So you probably heard the 3 steps that we need. First, listening, which includes, reading and studying, so that we get the right information about enlightenment that we're trying to achieve, and the stages we have to go through to reach there, what we have to do to get there. So we have to first develop a conceptual knowledge. And then the second step is thinking, reflecting and thinking to understand the material, have a correct understanding of, Buddha's teachings, the whole path. Then once we have the correct understanding, meditating on it, doing formal meditation on our understanding. And also the 2 types of meditation, the stabilizing and the analytical meditation, need to be used in a complementary way. It's not that they're 2 totally separate routes that, don't intersect at all. They do need to intersect and work together and help each other. So, for example, when we're trying to develop concentration, we're doing stabilizing meditation, trying to develop concentration using an object like the breathing or an image of the Buddha. So in that kind of meditation, we shouldn't be thinking. We shouldn't, let our mind go blah, blah, blah and have thoughts and concepts. It should be, just single-pointed, non-conceptual. But especially in the early stages of that kind of practice, our mind is going to be bombarded with all kinds of other things, including disturbing emotions, attachment, hostility or anger, laziness, pride, jealousy. So these kinds of things are going to come up in our mind, and we need to be able to identify them when they're there and then apply antidotes to them and not let them just take over our mind and disturb our meditation. And the antidotes to these disturbances to our meditation are mostly involve thinking. For example, for hostility, anger, the remedy is loving kindness. So we need to use thought to remember loving kindness and try to generate loving kindness for the person instead of anger and hatred. Or if our mind gets caught up in attachment, the remedies are impermanence, meditating on the impermanent nature of things, or meditating on the ugliness, the unattractive aspects of the object to counteract the attachment. So one uses thinking, thought, to deal with these hindrances that disturb our meditation. And then once, hopefully, you get beyond those, they clear away, then you can go back to the concentration meditation. So analytical meditation helps stabilizing meditation, and vice versa. Stabilizing meditation needs to be brought into analytical meditation. So for example, let's say we're meditating on death, which has like 9 different points to it, the 9-point death meditation. And the purpose of doing that kind of meditation is to induce some kind of experience. For example, realizing we're going to die. I'm not immortal. I'm mortal. I'm going to die one day. I'm not going to be here forever. So, that's something we usually want to avoid thinking about, but we have to realize that. So if we do get some sense of that, wow, I'm going to die one day, then we're meant to stop thinking, don't just carry on thinking, but stay with that experience. Stay with that. It's like an insight or a feeling, very powerful one. And so we're meant to focus our mind, stabilize. Use stabilizing meditation. Concentrate on that experience, even if it's just for a few seconds. But just to make our mind really, really familiar with that experience. One teacher used the term soaking or marinating. You know, when you have food like meat or vegetables, you marinate this food in sauce with spices so that the spices really soak in to the food, and then it makes it very, very tasty. So using stabilizing meditation like this is like soaking the mind in the insight or the experience, the feeling that comes up when doing the meditation. So that insight really soaks into the mind, and that's how we change the mind, because that's what we're trying to do, is bring about a change, a transformation of our mind. And I'll just read what Lama Tsongkhapa says about the need for analytical meditation. He says it much better than me. He says, analytical meditation is necessary for meditations such as those on faith in the teacher, the great importance and difficulty in obtaining leisure and opportunity, in other words, the precious human rebirth, death and impermanence, karma and its effects, the faults of cyclic existence, and the spirit of enlightenment, or bodhicitta. This is because these meditations need an awareness that is long-lasting, very forceful, and capable of changing the mind. Without this, you will not be able to stop the forces that oppose these meditations, such as disrespect. So forces here means states of mind that we are habituated to, habitual thoughts, tendencies, attitudes, emotions. Okay, our mind is full of those, and those oppose the kind of transformations we're trying to make in our mind. We're trying to realize that we are mortal, that we're not going to live forever, and that we need to use our life in ways that are meaningful rather than wasting our time. Okay, so we're trying to bring about this kind of change in our mind, and to do that we need, he's saying here, we need an awareness, a state of mind that's long-lasting, that lasts as long as possible, even just a minute or two, and forceful, very powerful, and capable of changing the mind, bringing about a change in the mind. Okay, so that's possible by using this combination of analytical or thinking meditation plus stabilizing meditation, stabilizing the insights or emotions or experiences that we come to in our meditation. Anyway, that's just a little bit more information about those two kinds of meditations.
Thank you, Venerable. I had a question about the meaning generality, and you mentioned that we have a meaning generality of emptiness until we can realize it directly. And then last night we were talking about sound generalities and how those are ideas that we have of objects we've never experienced before. So my question is, can we have a meaning generality of an object we haven't experienced before?
Yeah, we were talking about that. And I mentioned, for example, if you've never been to Rome, someone who's never physically been in a place like Rome, and you've just seen photographs of it. And my thought was, yeah, you can't really have a meaning generality of a place you've never been to. You could have a sound generality, hearing descriptions of it, you know, hearing the word Rome and hearing descriptions of Rome. But you can also look at photographs or movies that show Rome. But it's not the same as being there. Okay, so when you actually go there, you're there physically present, looking at it all, feeling it, smelling it. Then you have a much more powerful meaning generality. But Venerable Children said, well, maybe before going there, you could have a meaning generality of a photograph of Rome. Okay, so yeah, that would be different than just hearing words. Seeing a photograph, is a little bit more powerful. Still not as powerful as physically being there. So I think there could be different levels of these meaning generalities that can occur to our mind depending on, what amount of information we have, what amount of material we have about that object before physically seeing it or experiencing it. So I think there could be all different levels of that.
How to get a good meaning generality of emptiness to know that it's kind of accurate.
Well, you have to have an inferential understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to have a good conception of it, an accurate conception. And how do you know before you experience it?
Well, I mean, as soon as we start hearing about emptiness and reading about emptiness, we start to get some kind of mental image of emptiness. And the more we read and study and think and meditate, discuss, then our meaning generality will probably grow and become better and better, more and more accurate, more and more powerful. And then eventually what we're trying to get to is they call it an inferential understanding of emptiness. That's a realization, a conceptual realization based on a reason. That's quite a powerful experience. And then from there, you go on to develop the union of calm abiding and special insight, observing emptiness, and then eventually the direct realization of emptiness. So there's kind of stages you go through on the way. But we just have to start with whatever we can. Okay, thank you.